Hello and welcome back to the smoke room. We're going to continue with Cliff's route. We are in the forest as far as I remember. So let's see what's gonna happen. We reach the heart of the forest by nightfall. Just like Jedediah had said, there's a stream nearby. Cliff and Murdoch go to wash up while me and Jedediah unpack the supplies and feed the donkeys. After gathering some firewood, we even managed to get a nice campfire going. By the time the sun's almost completely set, only orange light filters through the tree leaves. We're all huddled around it, swapping stories, drinking. Even Jedediah is resting for a change. He turned around, and there was the miner's ghost, heaving a pickaxe high above his head. "You come for my gold, and I'll come for your life." The soldier was never heard from again. They say that if you go near the mines at exactly midnight, you can hear the miner striking rock, looking for gold. Thud, thud, thud. He continues to pantomime the entire thing. That was a terrible story. Why did the soldier even enter the mines in the first place? Why didn't he just turn back the first time he heard the ghost? How could there possibly be a message written in fresh blood if the ghost didn't even have any to begin with? There was no one else in the mines, and you didn't mention a corpse. The fox waves his paw. Oh, hush. I wasn't really trying with that one. If you'd like to tell a tale, go right ahead. I'm dying to hear some Batavian stories. I would, but I don't want to terrify you, Murdoch. I'll still require your services after tonight. Just admit you don't have any stories that can match mine. He drinks from the whiskey flask being shared. There's nothing scary about ghost tales. Men frighten me more than monsters or ghosts ever could. Doesn't seem to stop you from cozying up to Sam here. Murdoch! I look for a response from Jedediah, but the horse is still staring into the flames. You alright, Jedediah? The fire crackles. Yup. Speaking of, Jedediah, Cliff and I want your opinion on something. No, don't. We got talking while you were fixing the wagon and... He pauses. He's really milking this for all it's worth. Cliff buries his face in his palms, groaning. You're a horse, right? You only now noticed? Besides the point. Is it true what they say about horses, that they've got big? He gestures to his crotch, spilling some whiskey on himself. Jedediah doesn't seem impressed. You've got to be kidding me. Sam, care to weigh in? I can't answer that. You spent quite some time alone together. Don't tell me that all you did was fix the wagon. That's all we did. I think back to my time at the hip. I've only ever had 3 horse clients. Drat, I suppose we'll never know, Cliff. That's enough out of you. The group laughs. I look at my watch. Murdoch notices. I suppose it's about that time, isn't it? What's our itinerary for tomorrow? We'll be cutting through the forest for the most part. Shade. I like it. We'll be out by evening and reach the settlement by noon the day after. The forest's that big, and more treacherous than you might think. Plenty of things that can kill you if they can sink their teeth into you. I thought we'd left James Hendricks behind in Echo. I'd have laughed if he wasn't a client of mine. Just keep an eye out. Snakes and spiders about. Spiders? And plenty of them. Had one in my tent one time. Didn't end well. Did you get bit? I mean, it didn't end well for the spider. Our fearless leader. The fox stretches, handing Jedediah the whiskey bottle. The horse takes its swig. And with that, I think I'll retreat to my tent. We have a long day ahead of us. That we do. The stoat looks at me with those big blue eyes. I think I'll stay up for a little while longer. Perhaps I'll do some stargazing. Fuck. As long as you two stargaze quietly. Jedediah stands up as well, poking the fire with a stick. I'll go to bed too. There's a book I want to finish. I'll see you fellas at dawn. Good night. The fox and the horse both retreat for the night, leaving me and the stoat alone together. The cicadas are pretty loud. I doubt I could sleep even if I wanted to. You not gonna join them? I need some quiet before bed. You ain't gonna get it here. I didn't mean quite so literally. He slips a little closer, grabbing my paw. I let him. The stars are beautiful tonight. They don't shine quite this bright in Schippersburg. I guess your painter friend can learn a thing or two from us. Antony von Hallowick? He laughs. I suppose he could, were he still alive. He's dead? Has been for quite a few years. You couldn't have known. I wonder what he would have painted with the scenery. A warm, inviting, crackling fire, a beautiful full moon, and even better company. He squeezes my paw. Thank you for helping me realize my dream, Samuel. What are you gonna do once your thesis is finished? I intend to travel back to Europa and, well, finish my studies. After that, I don't know. I might travel the world for a while to study more cultures. But I'll have to return to Batavia eventually. To your family? Yes, my father isn't getting any younger, and they're expecting me to become the man of the house, as it were. You don't sound too happy about that. You heard those men the other day, Samuel. You heard the sheriff. I'm not exactly the pinnacle of masculinity. I'm not sure I even qualify as a man in my father's eyes. I might have sailed to a whole different continent, but the comments and jeers are the same no matter where I go. Perhaps I was foolish to think that in this wild, untamed frontier, I'd be free to love who I want, no matter their gender. I'd say. But I do feel sorry for the little guy. Fuck what the rest say. You don't gotta answer to no one but yourself. I wouldn't have put it so bluntly, but yes. You have a point. He leans on over and hugs me tight, the little weasel's paws clamping on my back. Thank you. What was that? Another roar sounds, almost like a person screaming. But it isn't. Cliff clings to me, his fingers dig into my back. His breaths are short, shallow, and I catch the smell of peppermint. Do you think it's a predator? It can't be. I heard footsteps. Heavy ones, just like the ones I heard that night Cliff was with me. I don't reckon it is. Jedediah crawls out from under his tent, tossing a book behind him. He has a severe look on his face. Murdoch ain't too far behind, rubbing at his eyes with a dark paw. Jedediah shushes him. You heard it as well? Jedediah nods, holding a finger in front of his muzzle. He speaks, mouthing his words more than he whispers them. Douse the fire. The smoke will hide our scent. Cliff looks at the horse, brows twitching, as if even his face is unsure of what the expression is appropriate. It was so peaceful moments ago, but right now, it's stuck somewhere between shock and tears. But Jedediah frowns. Douse the fire. I wrestle myself free from Cliff, knocking him onto the forest floor. I struggle, clamoring for the bucket of water we'd filled up earlier. The fire hisses and sputters as I empty its contents. The woods molders for a second. Darkness and smoke follow. I drop the bucket, a splash of water hits my paw. Something rustles through the bushes. One moment it's on one side, the next it's on the other. Don't move a muscle. His voice can barely be called a whisper. The smoke's damn near suffocating me. I can't see or hear Cliff, or Jedediah, or Murdoch. Whatever it is, whatever's out there, I can hear it breathe. It's rasping like a dying man. My eyes sting, my throat burns. I've got to get out of the smoke. Leaves crunch under my paws. The snap of twigs sounds loud as thunder. It sprints towards me. Red eyes shimmer in the dark. I can't make out its shape, but I remember the scent clear as day. The dirty gray fur. I bare my claws, putting myself between it and the rest. I'm running on pure instinct now. I can only hope Cliff is still behind me. It grazes me, knocking me off balance. I can hear Cliff screaming before my head hits the ground hard. Pain surges through my entire body, and I grit my teeth just to stay awake. My vision is blurry. I see red, but I don't see if it's Murdoch's fur or the dying embers of the fire. I reach out to it, only for another scream to sound out, followed by utter chaos. Then flesh is torn. Bones break. I hear a donkey bray, followed by the clopping of its hooves. Something scrapes over the ground next to me. It's a dreadful sound. I sniff the air, catching a metallic scent. Blood. Fresh blood. I crack an eye open. Immediately, I wish I'd kept it closed. A donkey is staring me straight at me, face twisting in an unearthly way. Soulless, almost, were it not for its still moving eye. Its body is a few yards behind it, contorted and broken. I look away just as the head is scraped further over the ground, rolling onto my other side. I've seen my fair share of horrid things recently, but this is beyond belief. The soil underneath me is warm and damp. It sticks to my shirt, coloring it in shades of pink and red. Can see the streaks over my arm even in the dark. My arms go limp. I can't lift them. The last bits of strength I had drain from my body and darkness takes me. My last words are a prayer. The last thoughts are of hell. Of hell and of home. Don't think you get to go softly. There's something tied around my neck. Thick, heavy, coarse. You don't deserve to go softly. Not after what you did. The voice is right in my ear. It's barely audible over the noise. A crowd? There's cloth covering my eyes. I can see the pattern on it when I open them. I try raising my hands to take it off, but they're bound behind my back. The rope shafts against my fur and digs into my skin. The more I struggle, the more it hurts. William? Is that you? There's no slipping out of this one. I hear footsteps on wood. Murder is a serious crime, Sam. I didn't mean to, I swear it. He tricked me. You've got only yourself to blame. I can barely hear his voice as it's overpowered by the chanting of the crowd, all shouting for my head. You've got to believe me. I didn't. He attacked me. I hang my head, the blindfold getting damp. I can't even hear myself cry. Please, William. Please. But Sam, isn't that what you wanted? All this time, you've been running away. The voice grows colder, more distant. It shifts in tone, shifts in pitch, like some sort of strange machine. From your home, from your state, from the mines. You've used people, left people behind. And now you're running from Echo. What's that gotten you? Right here. at the end of my rope. The voice is Williams again, but it isn't him. It's far darker, dripping with hatred. Isn't this what you wanted, Sam? My chin is tipped up by a paw. I can feel something's hot breath on me. It reeks. To finally stop running. To stop going in circles. The wood underneath me creaks. All it takes is a pull of a lever. A laugh. It won't hurt a bit. Unless you keep struggling. Something clicks. Any last words? Please don't. Goodbye, Sam. The floor gives way under me. The fall's an eternity compressed in a single second. Then the rope pulls taut. Something snaps. The sensation of falling stops. I'm in a sitting position, half covered by a thin wool blanket. I cut my cheeks and my paw. It's freezing, but I welcome any kind of feeling right now. Even the dull, throbbing hammering away at the back of my head. I'm alive. My heart's pounding in my chest, but I'm alive. I recline again. The sky above me is a dark blue, barely visible from underneath the dense tree line. I reckon the sun's about to rise. I rub my eyes, sniffing the air for any sign of the others. I catch a faint whiff of smoke and flowers. You're awake! Oh my goodness! I never thought I'd be glad to hear Cliff speak. I look in the direction where the voice came from. Sure enough, there's Cliff, Murdoch, and Jedediah sitting around a smoldering campfire. It's a lot more modest than the one we made together. There's no sign of supplies or tents. Did we move? Cliff crawls over to me. His big blue eyes get even bigger. He lets out a delighted squeak before turning. He's awake! Murdoch follows, though rather than crawling over, he just walks. Jedediah stays put, not even glancing in my direction. He reaches for a flask, and I can smell the alcohol from here. Well, I'll be. How are you feeling, Sam? It takes me a second to process the question. I'm feeling a lot of things right now. I scratch behind my ears. Like I just wrangled a bear and lost. He grins. No hidden meaning behind it this time. Not too far from the truth. We thought you weren't going to make it. You hit your head pretty hard. What happened? Well, our camp was attacked by some manner. He swallows. Some manner of beast. His voice and the way he's trembling is making my fur stand on end. Calm down. He draws in a deep breath. It tore through our tents and supplies as though they were made of paper. We managed to get to safety, but it was either you or the supplies. We couldn't risk losing you. He puts his paw on mine, then retracts it quickly. You're cold! Taking the corners of the blanket, he drapes it over me again. I warm up almost instantly. I'm sorry. I'm just glad you're alive. Cold is better than dead, at any rate. You're lucky Cliff knew how to administer first aid. The weasel scratches the back of his head. It was nothing. So, what now? We wait until the sun's up. The horse takes a swig from his flask. Then, we go back. He gets to his feet. We're slow without the donkeys, but we're dead without the supplies. Is it even safe to go back? Sam still needs time to heal. I'm alright. I roll my shoulders and hear some crack. Are you sure? Fit as a fiddle. We don't want your wounds getting infected. Even scrapes can fester and kill you out in the wilderness. I wave them off. It's just a headache. And wounds from the mines I can't tell them about. I should have some laudanum in my satchel. Lauda what? I've always been bad with big words. Something for the pain. He frowns. But my satchel's with the other supplies. I suppose we don't have much of a choice then. I do at least have some water in my pack. It's not much, but we can fill up our flasks once we find the stream again. Can you stand, Sam? I can try. I brace myself against the ground and push myself up. I'm sore all over. There's some scratches and scabs on my arm. Cliff watches me with a pained expression, paws balled into fists. It takes me a moment, and even when I'm on my feet, I don't feel all that stable. But at least I'm standing. I try to walk next. The ground's uneven and the dirt shifts beneath my paws. Every step's a gamble. But it doesn't hurt. I think I'll be okay. You can lean on me. He smiles at me. Thanks. Don't mention it. But the next time you decide to jump in front of some large creature, do tell me first. You might be used to taking a pounding, but my back sure isn't. I can't always be there to carry you. By the time the first rays of sunlight hit the forest, we head out. It's still cool out and the woods are still dead silent. There's less small talk. In fact, barely anyone saying a word. Cliff's eyes never leave me and Murdoch stays close to pick me up when I stumble. Once I'm used to being on my feet again, we pick up the pace just a little. Jedediah, for once, isn't walking in front. He doesn't make eye contact when I look over my shoulder. You carried me this far? Murdoch chuckles. It was a group effort. You're pretty heavy, you know that? I tilt my head. And that thing didn't follow you? No, it... He looks back at Jedediah, then lowers his voice. After it took you down, it dragged one of the donkeys deeper into the woods. He winces. Took its head clean off. And the other donkey? Ran away. It wasn't a pretty sight. He pauses, tapping his chin. Kinda strange, come to think of it. It could have killed us all pretty easily, so why didn't it? Maybe it was just looking for a quick meal. He shrugs. Any of us would have sufficed. Would have got more meat out of our bones than those donkeys combined. Did you want to die? Not in this particular way, no. I'm just happy my equipment survived the ordeal. Perhaps the creature meant to frighten us. You think so? As you said, if it meant to kill us, it had ample time and strength to do so. It's just a thought, of course. I've not heard about any stories or urban legends regarding rat-like monsters in this region. It wasn't a rat, though. It was! I saw it! It was more fox-like. Did you see anything, Sam? I try and remember what I saw, but I just end up drawing a blank. I got knocked out before I could get a good look at it. Strange. If we hadn't almost gotten ourselves killed, I would have said it bears investigating. Perhaps the Meseta will know more. Do you know anything, Jedediah? If I did, you'd be the first to know. Come on, we need to pick up the pace. I yawn. I must have been out all night, and yet I'm exhausted all the same. Are we going the right way? We should be, look. He points to a large tree on the side of the path, and next is etched into the bark. No doubt marked by claws. We marked some of the trees on the way so we wouldn't get lost. Jedediah tell you to do that? Murdoch whispers again. It was Cliff's idea, actually. I raise a brow. Jedediah's been awfully quiet ever since last night, even for him. Can you blame him? Not at all. I mean, every man's allowed to mourn in his own way. Makes me wonder if anyone's out there mourning or even looking for Huxley. He must have had a wife, a family. Someone who cared for him despite everything he did. Jedediah is our compass in these woods. We're like headless chickens without him. I've got ears, you know. Murdoch seems to realize what he said, ears pinned to the back of his head. Terribly sorry. Jedediah passes us, his eyes are unfocused, and he smells of whiskey. Are you okay? He certainly doesn't look it. I don't think he's in much of a state to lead anyone right now. We should be getting close. We reach a fork in the path. Jedediah takes a step forward, staggering. His mane is messy. The difference between him now and yesterday is like night and day. Cliff's already passed him, walking over to one of the trees on the left side and running his fingers up the bark. Strange. These trees should be marked. He eyes Murdoch. I marked them all right. Don't think I'd forget. Damn near ripped a claw or two doing it, too. Jedediah sighs, rubbing his temples. We don't have time for this. Follow me. He heads down the path to the left and motions us to follow. In spite of the sun rising, it isn't getting any brighter. The foliage is getting thicker, blocking out more and more of the morning sun. It's as though it never rose in the first place. Even the local wildlife gets quieter the deeper we go. Before long, we get to another fork in the road. This time, we go right, passing a large rock. There are no marks on the trees in front of us. When I ask Jedediah, he insists we're going the right way. So we keep walking down the winding paths. Bushes and weeds have completely overtaken some of them. Even for a forest, it feels abandoned, lost, as if we shouldn't be here. What happened last night only makes the feeling that much worse. We're hungry and tired. Our clothes are covered in stains and dust. The slightest noise has us looking around in a panic. I hate to say it, but I almost wish I was back in Echo. I'm starting to miss Cynthia. Wonder how she's doing right about now. What she'd say if she saw me here. What she'd say if she knew I'd been planning to run. Maybe she already knew. Not like I can run anymore. That plan's been dragged out back and shot. The voices from my dreams are still whispering in my ear. And part of me is starting to think they were right. We decide to take another break after about another hour. It's getting warmer, but not any brighter. We're just about emptied Cliff's flask of water when the weasel speaks up. We need to head back. I hate to say it, Jedediah, but we're lost. Jedediah furrows his brow and purses his lips. We can't be lost. It's this way. We've been walking for over an hour now. I don't think we're any closer than when we started. The horse takes a step into the weasel's direction. I know this forest. Clearly not as well as you think you do. What am I even paying you for? Think you can do better? I know so. Cliff takes a step towards Jedediah. This could get ugly fast. Then by all means, lead the way. At the very least, I can do so without getting ourselves killed. Excuse me? The paw holding his flask is shaking. Hand me the flask, Jedediah. The horse grits his teeth. Hand me the flask. Murdoch gets off the rock he's sitting on and steps in between the two, holding up a paw. Calm down, both of you. Fighting won't solve anything. Jedediah, give me the flask. The horse grunts. He hesitates. He finally hands it over. Now, instead of thinking of problems, let's think of solutions. Wait, hold on. His nose twitches. Do you smell that? I sniff the air next. Next to me, Cliff does the same. I just smell trees and flowers. I sniff again and catch something else this time. It's faint, but I smell ash and smoke on the wind. We're not alone in these woods. Someone must be nearby. Could be trouble. Murdoch sniffs the air again, then walks off, beckoning for us to follow. We push through the shrubs and past trees, going off the beaten path. The smell of ash and burnt wood is getting stronger. This is it. Stay close. I put myself between the source of the scent and Cliff, baring my claws again. No matter what we end up finding, I'm not getting taken by surprise this time. I step into the clearing. There's a small campfire at the center. By the looks and smell of it, it wasn't put out that long ago. Next to it is a little group of 4 tents that I reckon could fit just about 1 person each. One of them has got patches sewn all over. Someone must really wanted to keep it in one piece. Bags are haphazardly strewn across the clearing. Some have their contents spilling out onto the forest floor. No doubt there's enough supplies here to feed a small group. No sign of any wagons, though. Do you see anyone? Not yet. Good. I've had it up to here with monsters. Keep your voice down. Claw still bare just in case. I walk into the camp. A tinkle runs down my spine. A camp this deep into the woods can only mean trouble, right? The campfire is still smoking. Whoever this camp belongs to must have left in a hurry. Maybe we weren't the only people to fall victim to whatever that creature was. Jedediah comes up behind me. I recognize that tent. His voice sounds urgent, scared almost. He runs past us to the patched up tent in the middle of it all. Without waiting for us, he opens the flaps. When he looks back at us, there are no words coming out of his muzzle at first. Only a pained grimace. Then, it's empty. He buries his face in his hands. We gotta look. He can't have gone too far. Who are you talking about? Avery. He's here. I have to find him. He paces between the tents, looking in each and every one of them. Avery? Your friend? He says nothing, just nods. His breathing is irregular, frantic. As I walk past the tents myself, I notice marks on the forest floor. They start out on one side of the camp and lead into the forest. What little plants there were in the way have been flattened and crushed beyond recognition. I kneel down next to them. I found something. The rest of the group joins me shortly. These marks. They're drag marks. Someone must have gotten carried away. He runs his fingers over them. They ain't too wide, or deep for that matter. Fairly straight, too. Whoever got dragged was thin and light. He sighs. There wasn't much of a struggle. Let's not get any hasty conclusions. Maybe they were carried to safety? Even if that's true, safety from what? We look off into the woods. The trees are so dense we can't see too far out. We need to move. There's a rustling noise coming off from the distance. I prick my ears up. More footsteps. Leaves and twigs crunching. Find a weapon. I scan the surrounding area for something, anything. I end up settling for one of the pieces of wood near the campfire. The footsteps sound closer, coming from the direction of the drag marks. They ain't as heavy as the ones I heard last night. And there's more of them. It's people. That's a good or a bad thing? I ain't sure yet. Just stick close. Jedediah and I scramble back to our feet, getting in front of Murdoch and Cliff. I hear a man's voice coming from behind the trees. Is it safe out there? I see movement in the bushes. Another man, his voice much deeper, replies. Hold on. There's people. People? What do you mean people? I said what I said. Quiet down. Something hits the floor next to me. Jedediah has dropped the branch he was holding. Avery? That you? The deeper voice answers. Jeb? 1 second. Goddamn branches are almost tearing my antlers off. The more I listen to it, the more I feel like I know that voice. I put my free paw on the back of my head where the stitches had been. A panting, heavy-set elk comes stumbling out of the woods moments later. His glasses look a little like Cliff's. Everything clicks into place once I see those brown eyes and those big antlers. I've seen him before, actually. I've seen him plenty. The last time I saw this man, he was poking around with a needle in the back of my head. He takes a moment to catch his breath, peering straight at me. Behind his glasses, his brown eyes go wide. Sam? The name had sounded so familiar, but I would have never known me and Jedediah were talking about the same Avery. Dr. Avery. Ave, it really is you. Jedediah walks up to him without saying a word. He embraces a much larger elk. It's good to see you. Good to see you too. Avery stares off, rattled, but returns the hug nonetheless. He makes eye contact once more. My cheeks feel red hot about now. I hope he doesn't blab about the stitches to the others. But Jedediah's right. It's good to see someone familiar in this godforsaken forest. And the Burns boy too? Howdy, Doc. Avery lets go of Jedediah. The horse wipes his eyes with his sleeves. There's a wet streak on them when he lowers his arms again. Quite the odd posse you got here. Who's the short fella? Short? A client. Oh, pardon, sir. Didn't mean to offend and all that. Cliff seems offended all the same. The elk turns his head. You can come out. They're friendlies. A kid fox ducks out from behind the tree. He's so scrawny looking he seems to have more fur than flesh and bones on him. Can't be older than 20, I'd reckon. A large bear follows suit. Judging by their garments, I wouldn't say they're from Echo. What happened here? I tell you, but you'd call me mad. Was it some sort of monster? How did you know? Because the same thing got us. Jed closes his eyes. It killed Doris, Ave. Avery's quiet for a moment. He takes a step back. We're missing a man, too. He was tending the fires when... He looks at the drag marks. We were looking for him, but he's nowhere to be found. Whatever it was didn't leave any tracks. No blood either. It's like he never existed at all. The bear talks to Avery in a language I don't understand. Avery responds effortlessly. I hear a small squeak behind me. You're with the Meseta? Ah, so that's what that is. Cynthia's only ever taught me some of the dirty words. You know the language? Only a little. I'm researching the Meseta for my thesis. We were on an expedition to the settlement, but our journey so far has been a complete and utter disaster. We only survived by the skin of our teeth last night. That explains why Sam here looks more bloody and bruised than a miner after a tunnel collapse. You know him? Of course I do. He's a patient of mine. I grit my teeth, silently praying he doesn't bring up the stitches. He's one of the few who can place me on the day I killed Jack. Gotta change the subject. What were you doing out here in the woods, Doctor? He gestures to the bear and the fox. With these three... He clears his throat. These two are fishermen. Every 2 weeks or so, they come to Echo to sell their wares on the market. When they're out of fish, they head home. My folks live in these here woods, so I usually tag along most of the way. Never had much trouble until now. He shakes his head, sitting down next to the campfire and reaching for a nearby leather rucksack. We should take what we can carry and leave before whatever it was comes back. You saw what it did to Sheila, Avery. I said we stay here for now, at least until it's brighter out. Avery turns to us. You folks best stay put too. But we have to go back! Our supplies! My notes! No notes are worth getting killed over. You don't understand. Without those notes, my life might as well be over. This expedition is the culmination of years of research into the Meseta culture. He's on the verge of tears. If I lose the research, I cannot hope to finish my thesis and... Quiet down and listen to me. Save for a sniffle, Cliff goes dead silent. You ain't getting anywhere like this. You're hungry, tired. He looks at me. Wounded. Your notes and your supplies ain't just gonna up and walk away from you. I don't know a thing about the creature that attacked us. But going there in your state? Now that'll just make you easy pickings. Cliff seems like he's about to speak up about it, then relents. Very well. I suppose I am rather peckish. Avery smiles, lowering his rucksack to the floor. I'd be happy to trade some fruit for your name, mister. Tibbets. Clifford Tibbets. Most people around here have taken to calling me Cliff, or less fortunate names. Cliff, is it? My name's Avery, no last name. I already got that one. You're a doctor, correct? Of sorts. Of sorts? This is gonna sound real embarrassing, but I'm not a doctor the way you'd expect me to be. Don't exactly have a license or a diploma. I'm just good at what I do. Ask your friends. He takes an apple from the rucksack and hands it to Cliff. My own stomach growls. Thank you, Mr. Avery. I've got enough of those to share. He offers Jedediah a shiny red one. Got your favorite too. Jedediah swats his hand away. I ain't hungry, Ave. A man's gotta eat, Jeb. He shakes the paw holding the apple. Jedediah reluctantly reaches out and takes it. Fine. Murdoch and I get one soon after, followed by the fisherman. It's nothing fancy, but right now, hungry as I am, it looks so good as a 3-course meal. I bite into it. It's so juicy I have to wipe my muzzle after I swallow. I notice the smell of blood from earlier still clinging to my own torn sleeve. These are great. Thanks, Doc. Don't mention it. I got more if you need any more. It ain't much, but it'll help with the hunger pangs at least. Sam, mind joining me in my tent once you're done? Cliff's eyes go wide once more. He nearly chokes on the apple in his mouth. Excuse me? Don't go getting any ideas. I need to check on his wounds. I don't have the supplies or the equipment to deal with an infection here. Or the stomach to deal with an amputation. After that, perhaps we can see if it's safe enough to go see my folks. Their Hogan, their place, isn't too far from here. Are you saying we're gonna go to visit an authentic Meseta Hogan? He seems to have forgotten all about his notes. Authentic? Wonderful! Splendid! I don't think he heard Avery. The bear is looking at him from the corner of his eyes, confused. I've got so many questions. Oh, if only I had a pen to jot them all down. He takes a big bite out of his apple. Would be most happy to join you. I didn't know his voice could get so high. Probably not a bad idea if the creature hunts at night, right, Jedediah? The horse grunts. He's getting back to his old self again. So long as we get somewhere safe before nightfall. If you're looking for information on the Meseta, ain't no one in the region who knows as much as my mom. Don't tell my pa I said that. Avery's tent is just big enough for the two of us. Even then, his antlers are pressing up against the roof, damn near tearing holes in the fabric. But it's somewhere private. Which is good because I'm not decent right now. Avery's been cleaning my wounds for the past 10 or so minutes, front and back. He's disinfected and applied bandages to my torso, and now most of his attention is focused on the wounds on the back of my head. You have a knack for getting yourself into trouble, don't you, Sam? I'm a horror doctor. It's more like trouble has a knack of getting into me. You didn't hit your head too hard if you're still cracking jokes. He hums a little ditty, wiping the back of my head and neck with a damp cloth. When he pulls it back, it's pink in hue, just like my shirt. It's a damn miracle you survived at all. Heard that one before. Didn't stop you from bumping your head again, now did it? He moves the cloth down between my shoulder blades over one of the spots that got scratched up the hardest. I hiss. Gotta keep you on your toes somehow. Believe me, boy. When you've worked in medicine for a while, nothing surprises you anymore. That's something our lines of work have in common, I reckon. Bet you got your fair share of stories. Lord knows I do. Why, just ask Jedediah. How do you two know each other? Now that's a story I can share. He wrings out the cloth in the bucket. His family owns a ranch not too far out of town. When I was younger, before I came to Echo, I used to spend summers working there as a farmhand. The pay wasn't that great, but back then, it was my first job, and it meant the sun and the stars to me. I've never met a kid as curious as Jeb was. Always asking me questions. At first it was how are you that tall? And what are those things on your head, Ave? What are they for? As we got older, he started asking me about the Meseta and what it was like out there. Don't think the boy ever wanted to be a rancher. He was always off writing his little stories and reading his books. Anyway, time went on. You know how it is. I packed up and moved to Echo eventually, but we stayed in contact. Can't really picture him being all that talkative. He's quiet for a moment. He's not as happy as he used to be. Most of what troubled Jedediah happened after I left. Now, that ain't my story to tell. If you really want to know, ask him. He pats my shoulder. It still hurts. My turn. What got you following a weasel out into the woods? He's a client. Must be some client if Dora's willing to let you go out of her sight. He's a rich fellow from Batavia, came here to work on his, he mentioned a thesis. That's it. Either way, he's paying, so I'm not telling him my actual reason for coming along. I grab my shirt and pants. You might want to throw those clothes away when you get to the Hogan, by the way. They've got more holes in them than a Hendrix contract. And more blood on them than one, too. Brought some more clothes with me, but they're with the supplies. We can probably squeeze you into some old clothes of mine. Might be a tight fit, though. I look over my shoulder at his belly and raise a brow. He notices and laughs. It's a deep, rumbling one that makes the tent quiver. I'll head out and let you get dressed. Can't say it'll stop hurting right away, but at least you won't die. More than I can say for a lot of the other men who take a tumble in these woods. Thanks, Doctor. I owe you one. Do you now? His smile turns cocky. His glasses slide down his snout a little. I'll have to keep that in mind. I feel my cheeks flush. Wasn't expecting that. You can start by not cracking your head open like an egg every time I see you. Sooner or later, it's gonna turn out scrambled. With another pat on the back, he crawls backwards out of his tent. He leaves me alone with my dirty shirt and my thoughts. Walking's a lot easier when I don't have to do it on an empty stomach. We're leaving the deepest part of the forest behind, heading a little ways off the trail with Avery in tow. It's both a blessing and a curse. As the trees get sparser, I start to feel the familiar desert heat again. Avery, walking up in front with Jedediah, seems to be feeling a bit better. He's singing, loudly at that. I wish I had half the energy he has right about now. The bear and the kid fox haven't said a word since we left. Summertime, I'm jumping out and back into your skin. Murdoch hums along with a few bars, and I have to admit, Cliff was right about his voice. You know it too, huh? The elk swings his head around, nearly whacking Jedediah with his antlers. An old favorite of mine. I'm not sure I've heard it before. I'd love to play for you when I get my paws on my guitar again. You play? Why, yes indeed. I tried it once. Couldn't get far, not with these sausages of mine. He wiggles his thick fingers. So where exactly do your parents live, Avery? Oh, we're getting pretty close. This far off the main trail? The Hogan's hard to find if you don't know where to look. Keeps out unwanted visitors. Don't we qualify as unwanted visitors? Any friend of mine's welcome. Jedediah looks over his shoulder back at us. They're nice folks. Just mind your manners and you'll be fine. Cliff's already shaking at the prospect. This is so exciting! I can't believe I'm about to enter an actual Meseta home. I'm more than a little worried about him. Calm down, Clifford. You're a researcher, not a tourist. He takes a breath. Murdoch, is your camera still functional? It should work fine. In layman's terms, everything still clicks the way it's supposed to. You're awfully excited about this, aren't you? Of course! It's a once-in-a-lifetime chance. For you, yeah, but for my parents, it's their life, you know. Cliff tilts his head. All I'm saying is, ease into it, listen to what they gotta say when they talk. Can you do that for me? I'll try. Thank you, Cliff. We walk for about 30 more minutes through the woods before we come upon a clearing. There's a pen of livestock to the left where woolly animals graze. A large round structure sits ahead of us. It looks like a dome covered in earth with a doorway. I certainly haven't ever seen anything like it, but I have. Cliff is making strange noises beside me. Avery shuffles a bit. He calls out in a language and I don't understand, and the reedy voice of a woman meets it. The door of the dwelling opens and a very old elk comes out to meet us. She wears a plain apron and her hands are red with what looks like clay. She looks back and forth at us, folds in her brow growing prominent, then looks towards Avery, speaking slowly and calmly in that language. Avery laughs and replies in a carefree way. She does not return the laugh. Then it cannot be helped. Her accent is thicker than Avery's is. I already know, Jeb. To the rest of you, I am Manava. My son tells me that you met something evil in the woods. You may stay in my home for as long as you like, so long as you give as much as you take. And so long as you don't bring what you met in the woods inside. She disappears into the door. Not a single slaughtering beast among us at present, so we're good. Murdoch crosses his arms. Do you think she was being literal? The horse grunts. Yes and no. She means that the evil in our own head can upset the harmony in her home. Home is a sacred place. As long as we're calm, she'll let us stay. There's nothing to worry about. So then, what am I supposed to do? What the fuck? That doesn't reassure me at all. Jed has a nervous look on his face too. Cliff and Murdoch don't. One last thing. Make sure you go clockwise when you enter and leave the Hogan. Why? Because it's like the sun. Oh, so you already know? Well, I believe that the idea is that actively moving with the sun bolsters the natural order of the universe. This contributes to harmony. Well, sure. But there's a practicality to it too. When your home is just one room, going in one order makes it feel bigger. Speaking of practicality, are we gonna go inside? Avery smiles and walks up to the doorway, opening it. The first thing I see when we pass through is a big fire pit in the center of the room. The floor is bare dirt, but many woven rugs. Most of them line the walls made from branches. So is the ceiling, but there's a big hole at the top letting light in from the outside. Manava sits on the floor, pushing red clay between the slab and a smooth rock. Another elk sits on the north, handling the threads of a loom. He's big, but he looks very old, and he speaks to Manava again in that language. She responds quietly, calmly, but looks more preoccupied with the clay she's making. The big elk hums to himself. My name's God for the strangers among you. Need me to tell them the rules, Pa? He tilts his antlers away from the loom to take a proper look at us through his glasses. Rules? I always forget we have those. The chores are still the same. I'm sure you remember those. Avery scratches his head nervously as if he's suddenly remembering. Strangers, would you give me your names? Clifford Tibbets, I am so happy to make your acquaintance. I'm not so bubbly as this one, but charmed all the same. Murdoch Burns. Just Sam. Don't know why they're making this so official. And now you're no longer strangers. Neat trick, He's still preoccupying himself with the weaving. We haven't had as many visitors in a long time. You can do better than that. The old woman is grinning about something. I feel my eyebrows lifting. But then you'd be closer to finishing than me. And that wouldn't do. I look back at her hands, dunking into a pitcher of water, then his hands flipping through the loom strands carefully. It dawns on me that they're competing. They keep at this for another minute with a tense concentration until I hear a small rip. Gad sighs and Manaba smirks. Very well, I can't recover from that. He starts looking from expression to expression in the room. I can tell by your faces that you feel apprehensive. I'll trade some stories for stories to help with that. He looks to Jeb, then to his son, then to the two fishermen. Tell me what happened in the woods, but do not speak of any death. Jeb looks upset, but Avery clears the silence. I was coming to see you both, but for these two it started as an ordinary fishing trip. We were ambushed by the river. One of our party was taken. We thought we saw the beast that did it, but seems every person saw something different. I saw a vast, greedy fish that flopped like a mud skipper, only faster than any I've ever seen before. But its big, milky eyes looked diseased. We met this group near the riverside. Jeb told me his wagon got attacked and he lost his jennies. Same thing happened to us, more or less. Were you folks traveling from the north? South, from Echo. Gad stops weaving and his expression meets Jeb's. You don't usually have problems coming that way. Usually don't. Enough to, though. What was different this time? Jeb looks like he's thinking. The marks in the trees weren't there anymore. Reliable landmarks weren't the same. One of ours said that the trees looked different, that they could see things that shouldn't normally be there. Try not to get too descriptive. We have always told travelers to fish to the north, not the south. I know that. There haven't been any problems until now. Flesh forgets, soil doesn't. She pulls the red clay from her slab and puts it in a ceramic bowl, folding it into the sides. There's something relaxing about her pushing the clay in, folding, and spinning slowly, almost like it's dough. Wish her words were just as relaxing. North? You know, I've noticed that there aren't many Maseta people who live in Echo. There's a few, and this one. He jerks his head to his son. Avery looks a little flustered. There's work there that pays well. I still think not enough for the risk. I can't help but feel this is a sore spot. Reminds me of how Cynthia won't talk about it either. We avoid going there to sell, even with all the buyers. There are too many evil stories about that land, such that we don't like to talk about it. So then, why are we talking about it? Because we are afraid for you. The elk looks at his wife curiously. I am not afraid for him. He is strong and intelligent. Our fathers were great warriors, Manaba. She says something that makes Gad's brow furrow. Avery winces. This bowl is ready for firing. She dusts off her apron as she stands, looking along the crowd of people and waving. Goodbye. I hear Cliff make a noise. Might I watch this process? Yes. She picks up several clay bowls and hands them to the weasel, whose hands quickly fill up. He looks terrified of dropping any. I don't think he expected to be participating. Follow. With a look of fear, he follows her out the door. Murdoch gives me a look. I have to see this. The fox leaves the building. Avery, his two companions, and Jeb sort of look at me. What? Mind joining them? There's some air of anticipation, like they want to talk to Gad in private. Don't have to ask me twice. Thanks. I walk out the door and see Murdoch, Cliff, and Manaba huddled around what looks like a small pit in the ground. So, you let the embers burn for hours before stacking the ceramics? And then you pile on more wood to light a second fire to bake the clay? Extraordinary, just extraordinary. You speak very fast. I'm sure every piece is to be treasured. These are just for when we eat. Practical pieces. I consider them art. Not art. Cliff hums. Surely you must admit that there is something sacred to this, yes? All things natural are sacred. I think what you call art, you put in a room, and you have people look at it just with their eyes. In a manner of speaking, yes, for the sake of public awareness. What we make, we use, or we sell, or we trade. The act of making influences respect. Respect for making turns into patience. Eyes alone do not teach patience. She looks at me and Murdoch. You will both bring me 2 logs from the pile. She looks at Cliff. You bring me 5. Why do I have to bring more? They're bigger than me. They have shared more of themselves by their silence than you have with your words. Cliff grimaces, but he doesn't argue and walks on over to the log pile with determination in his eyes. Whoa, that actually worked. Maybe I should tell Cliff to go and make a fire pit more often. 2 logs coming up. When I get to the pile, I whistle. These are chunky. Murdoch looks at the pile too and lets out a one-note laugh. It's like if your thighs were made out of wood. Cliff isn't paying any attention to us and hefts one of the logs, panting as he carries his first one back to the fire. I bend over to pick up 2 logs and haul them both over my shoulder. The logs are long, awkward shaped, and even I feel winded by their weight. Murdoch looks at me with some skepticism. I think I'll do this one at a time. Probably wise. I wink and he addresses me with a look. I set the logs down by the fire, feeling a grunt escape my body from the sudden decrease of all the weight. When Cliff and Murdoch's first logs arrive, she puts them in the embers, stacking them over the pottery in a triangle formation. The wood is so dry that it doesn't take long for the logs to smoke. By the time Cliff brings his last log, he's heaving hard and a flame takes to the wood. The smoke gets thick enough to look cloudy. 4 hours. She stands and starts hobbling back to the front door of the Hogan. When I go through the doorway again, I see that Jeb and Avery's group are sitting by a rug against the wall, discussing something in their low voice. Gad is stoking the fire in the center of the room, and Manaba is pouring what looks like a small amount of oil from a jar into a big cast iron pot. Did you bring fresh fish? The bass was big today. Help me clean them, then we'll fry them with bread. Peppers too. We will eat in 1 hour. An hour? Why don't you tell the story while they wait? The elk crosses his arms and tilts his antlers. Could you tell us a story about Echo? His lips purse. We said we don't speak about that land. I know, I was just curious why. Do they know things that they aren't willing to talk about? All you need to know is that that land is unnatural. But what does that really mean? If you ask again, I will have to take that as an attack upon our home, and I will have to ask you to leave. The mood of the room shifts from lively to something more tense and quiet. I didn't mean to sour the evening, but if these people know something that we don't, maybe it's possible that they could help us. You seem to think that we hide secrets. The truth is that part of what protects us is knowing little about evil things. I can tell you only one story about Echo, but it does not involve the unnatural. At least, not directly. The real boundaries of that land have been known to my grandfather's grandfather, not the men who think in maps and railroads. Near the year 1600 in your calendar, it is said that a band of warriors found locations where Mother Earth would cradle them and Father Sky couldn't be blotted out. Bonfires were their beacons. The chanting and the dancing roused their spirits. It said even our most foolish warriors could whistle at these places at night with nothing to fear. I don't necessarily believe that part, though. You're not supposed to do that, you know. Gives away your position. But, as they said, it was difficult to fear death when you were surrounded by loved ones. But the funny thing about these places is they weren't keeping track of them. They had no reason to keep track of them. To be Meseta means to wander. Our people weren't used to staying put. Staying put is more of a modern thing. Access to food keeps changing. But sometimes, it was known that the best thing to do was to leave your home behind and start anew elsewhere. The bonfires were more of a nod to peace of mind than anything else. So these warriors made many bonfires in their time. And so did their children. And so did their children's children. New ones are made by younger people from time to time, but you can still find the sites of a lot of old ones. Eventually, our people did have to start paying attention to maps and borders. Oral history would always be more important, and we had that too. Conquerors came with flags telling us where we could and couldn't be. And not just one flag either. No, there were many flags. But that's less relevant. What was relevant was that the maps and borders became necessary to avoid wanton death. My father, who was a descendant of one of these original warriors, or so he said, kept a lot of these maps and updated them as they changed. Usually his concerns were the locations of the hostile armed colonies. But he had a hobby of marking down the bonfires over the years. I think it was just a thing that sort of put his mind at ease. Just a thing to do. But over time, he felt less at ease. Because he found him thousands of those sites. Glad reaches behind him and opens a wooden trunk. He rifles through some of the cloth and some of the satchels until he pulls out a cylindrical container. He plucks what looks to be a folded piece of animal skin and starts to unfold it onto his lap. I see drawings of rivers, names of places, and topographies. But the other thing I see is little red X's marked on the skin. So many little red X's. Strange that when you look at so many of the fires put on a map, they never appear inside the circle. What the fuck? What the fuck? It's quiet enough in the room to hear the insects outside right now. But Murdoch's making a clicking sound. I turn to look at him. It's the sound of his teeth clicking together inside of his mouth. He's shaking. On the map, the people in Echo say that the border of their territory looks like a strange shape. But the Meseta know that it is a circle. Manaba grabs Gap's shoulder tightly. She crouches down as if to whisper in his ear. Then she plants a kiss in his cheek. Gad starts laughing as Manaba brings him to his feet. So, it's like I said. I can tell you the things we know about the outside of that place, but we will remain willingly ignorant of what is inside. I've had enough of stories tonight. Let's play some music. To be continued. So we have reached the end of what is currently available for Clifford's Route. Hopefully within months, because this updates monthly, we will get more, of Clifford. I actually wonder if the chapters will, they split off, but then they come back together. Or at least if they have a common end for all 4 of the stories. That would be really neat. It would also help the writers sort of end this quicker instead of dragging this on for 5 years like Echo. Anyways, but thank you for watching / listening. If you would like to play any of the Echo Project games yourself, there will be links down in the description. If you would like to support the Echo Project game, you are strongly encouraged to do so by going into the itch page, and you should see the link for their Patreon on there. You will get access to early releases of all their projects as well as little goodies here and there. And well, yeah. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you later. Goodbye.